Alright guys, HyDra again, so I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. After plenty of drama this past weekend in the first weekend of the Major 4 qualifiers, OpTic Texas versus Vegas Legion has taken an interesting twist with Dan Ghosty revealing the server that was played on during the series was not necessarily optimal for the OpTic Texas guys. How one of the OpTic guys said this, it might have been a different story in terms of excuses, and maybe Hexer seemed to try and shut that down from the OpTic campo for the last several months. Ghosty though says that they were playing on a Virginia server, which according to Google Maps is probably not ideal for those guys. What does that mean for the future of this team, especially when they play again in the near future? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's just dive straight into it. First of all, I wanted to mention this, 104,000 peak viewers for that Founding Fathers LAN. Pretty cool to see what they put together over there, especially given that there wasn't a massive notice about this. They ran that kind of K-Ton online tournament, there was the drama between Nature and those guys. They thought, you know what, let's run something in person on LAN, given that FaZe are kind of now back in business or whatever. Average 7-8k viewers. Thought it was incredibly well done. I'm sure there's going to be more of this type of stuff to come as well over the off-season because it was just, you know, so well supported and received. But let's talk about some of these games because the final series of the weekend on paper I don't think was going to be that interesting. OpTic versus Vegas. Turned out it was a Game 5 grueler series, bit of a banger. OpTic won the Game 2 Search and Destroy. They won the map 4 Vista Hardpoint. They still, however, lost in 5 after losing the control that arguably they'll look back on and think maybe they should have, could have won, especially because of the pro paint tank blew them up. It did blow the other guys up, so you know, the game still isn't in the greatest spot. But of course, losing that sub-base hardpoint map 1, that was the big surprise. There was talk, of course, going into the day about the fact that there was no warm-ups, right? Shotzzy wasn't quite there in time, but apparently just none of the teams really were warming up for the day, so maybe that added a bit of randomness in certainly to the first map, where Shotzzy was not exactly coming out frying, right? And obviously Miami are potentially getting ready for stuff like this. We saw that Johnny hit the emote after he got the victory in 5. We know what's happened over the last couple of months since Vikul threw up the 3-0 signs back in January. Well, ever since then, effectively OpTic have been immune to Miami Heretics because for the last several years, OpTic versus Florida, that was their bogey match, or that was the one they struggled to win. Now they're Miami, bit of a different story, but it seems like by Vikul throwing up the 3-0, they've effectively gained immunity from losing to this team forevermore, and maybe it's going to be the same thing here, because Predator's going to go so hard, I'm sure, when they next play Vegas Legion, even if it's next year, as Johnny might still well be there next year, because, you know, their team's looking pretty decent at the moment on the victory a couple of days ago, although there are some caveats to that series, potentially, as we shall see in a second. But look, whenever Pred plays those guys, if they play from now to the end of the season or even next year, I'm sure that he doesn't want to lose in those particular moments. So it was interesting to see the response from the OpTic guys to this series because they didn't mention any of the details behind the game as to why, you know, they didn't play as well as normal. They just said, you know what, GG's, at least that's what Kenny said. It was like, you know what, fair play, we lost 2-3. I'm not going to say anything else. Back at it next weekend. Although it's quite obvious from Kenny's just feeling in general around competitive COD. He don't like online COD, you know, it ain't a secret that Kenny's not the biggest fan of online COD, and Dashy kind of also implied the same thing, didn't he, where he basically said, you know, we finished the split 1-1, i.e. I've had enough of online COD, can we just get back to LAN, which they'll be at for Major 4 in Burbank, and then they're going to be at, of course, for the World Championship a few weekends after that in Dallas, of course, not far from where OpTic presently are, but the server they played on a couple of days ago may have been rather far from where they are, so yeah, Dashy, of course, roasting Johnny for this one, but there was some speculation really on just ping cheese in general. This is really why the online stuff needs to go, at least in terms of being massively influential for points. The fact that the online league is effectively more important than the LAN events for the majority of teams is pretty outrageous. Like, if you look at the CDL standings here, the majority of points for most of the teams are online points. Like Thieves, they have, what, 15 points from LAN this season, 13 of their victories, like 130 of these points are from online play, I'm pretty sure. For Miami, it's what, 100 of these 130 points just from online. A similar story with these other teams. When you get to the top of the leaderboard in FaZe and OpTic and Ultra, because they've, you know, won events and stuff, sure, they get the 100 points for winning an event and their numbers are skewed in a different way. But for the majority of teams, especially those really fighting for the World Championship, online COD is the most important thing. Which, look, I don't think that should be the case, but that is the world we live in nowadays, right? And there's always, therefore, talk online about the ping differential. Does this ping tool even work? The idea is that when you play another team, you've got to find a server that is going to be equivalent pings for both teams if you can, and if you can't, or if it's nearly not quite perfect, they use this ping tool to ensure the pings are the same. And I know that some of the pros aren't really sure that actually works, but whatever, we've been doing it for years at this point. I don't really know if the online league is actually going to go away, although I've mentioned for some time that I'd much prefer a world where we still play online COD. Like, online COD shouldn't disappear, but when online COD is played, it's, you know, weekends, 2Ks, 5Ks, 10Ks that are played on weekends. There aren't actual CDL tournaments. As a result, you can see which teams are better, use those tournaments to... Obviously, people like watching tournaments more than they do regular league matches. That is a very solidified factor in the world of esports, and for very good reason. And you can use the results of those tournaments just like how they did pre-CDL, really, back in the day, to seed the teams going into the main season. And maybe you run a LAN league instead during the regular weeks. Maybe that's what you do, like they did back in, like, Infinite Warfare, World War II, seasons such as that. It's possible to consider that. Will they ever do a LAN league again, get all the players out to Columbus? I'm not really so sure they will, but there are other options, certainly better than what we have today, when you've got to deal with all of this ping type differential. And this is just another one of the reasons why I don't like this whole league match idea, because league matches work and are necessary in regular sports, because in regular sports, you can't play 2, 3, 4, 5 games a day. It doesn't work, you know, physically, the players are going to get tired. So the solution is you play league matches and you play, you know, one game on a Saturday every week, and then you might play a midweek game and you play 2, 3 games a week, and then the players can appropriately recover. In COD, if you want to, you can play 5, 6 series in a row all day, and sure, you're going to get tired, but it is doable. So I think in esports, we've just got to take advantage of the fact that there are some reasons that can make our entertainment better than in regular sports. But, you know, obviously the people that made the decisions when the CDL came around wanted to replicate the NFL for reasons that in hindsight have proven to be rather unfounded. But let's talk about this, right? So Vegas come out and they smoke OpTic game 1. There was then this specific 1 versus 1. Shotzzy gets the first kill onto Johnny. Gio drops down and absolutely guns Shotzzy super bad. And this is one of those gunfights you think, wow, that is not a gunfight that I would expect Shotzzy to be losing. So I guess, you know, we can just have a look at it again in slow motion, see actually what happens here. Maybe I can actually slow this one down thanks to Elon. So yeah, Shotzzy drops down low. Gio comes down for the kill. And look, Shotzzy probably misses a couple of bullets here. Obviously from spectator cam, sometimes it's a little bit strange, but he gets the first shots. I mean, does he miss? I don't know if he really misses, to be honest. Like, maybe Gio jumping throws off the hitbox a little bit, but that definitely feels like a gunfight that Shotzzy didn't really miss for. Okay, maybe a couple of bullets went underneath or over him, but yeah, the fact that Gio got that kill is pretty interesting, and is one of those kills that online happen sometimes because the hit rig isn't so good, and ping tool and ping cheese and server cheese, whatever. On LAN, that's probably a kill that Shotzzy gets. But the question was, is there more to it than that? Is Gio just on some sort of unkillable server? Especially when you fast forward to the end of the series and you see that OpTic got outslayed by 56 kills, 58 kills. People are saying 66, but I swear I'm adding up the numbers and they ain't coming to 66. But whatever, it's in that ballpark. Probably the most that OpTic have ever been outslayed by in a series, certainly as OpTic Texas. So is there something going on there, right? So in JP's chat yesterday, Dan Ghosty was in the chat discussing things, and it's very interesting that if an OpTic player had said this, then the discussion would have been, oh, you know, here we go, the excuses are coming out again. Ghosty, former OpTic member, was not that long ago that he was on that roster, but as he says, Virginia, you know, Virginia servers, if I speak him in big trouble, so if I speak, I'm in big trouble. So pretty sure that JP, I guess, said that they were on a Virginia server, and Ghosty was like, hang on a second, that makes no sense, because I know where those players are located. That is not a balanced one. So, well, I guess it is about time we go into Google Maps. So here we go. We're in the US of A. This is Dallas, Texas, of course, where the OpTic boys are based. I mean, we can actually probably find their exact headquarters. I think it's just about here, south of Victory Park, the American Airlines Center. Yeah, here we go. OpTic Gaming, they're right in this building, right about there, and that's the Dallas, Texas spot where they play from. Now, Attach lives in Dallas as well, so, he is around this ballpark. Virginia, though, for those not in the US that might not be so familiar with the geography, it's way over here on the East Coast. And it's quite a while away, as you can tell, from Dallas to Virginia. Usually, in past COD titles, maybe, even true still to this day, I imagine, when a Texas-based team plays against a team based out of LA or San Francisco or whatever, California, they'll play on like a Denver server. They'll play on a server that's roughly gonna like halfway between, and that usually works out rather well. When you play a team from Toronto, you've then got to consider things. Often they'll play on like an Atlanta server and stuff like this that is kind of halfway through. But, Virginia is obviously a long way from Dallas. It's almost like you're playing a team from Nova Scotia or something if you're playing out of Virginia. Now, the thing is, the Vegas guys are not based in one place, right? Because Vegas don't have the cash for a facility. So what they do is they just have their boys based where they're originally from. Now, I don't know where that is. Ghosty seemingly does. I don't know where those boys are based, but what I will do is share a clip here from last night's Dope Check show when Nero came on and was actually discussing this and said that as far as he's concerned, this actually wasn't true. Well, at least they were playing on a Virginia server, but the ping was not in the advantage of OpTic, because maybe sometimes you get these cases where the server looks a certain way or it looks like it's going to be closer to a certain team or set of players, but actually the ping is fine because the Dallas guys have like absolutely insane 10k fiber lines, so maybe to some extent it doesn't matter so much. But obviously there's been lots of reaction to this, but I'll just share what Nero has to say.
Any response to this on stream, by the way, because this was brought up by chat that I didn't know was on the Reddit, but Dan Ghosty on the server OpTic played on versus Vegas. He said, Virginia, if I'm speaking, I'm in big trouble. I know where those players are located. That is not a balanced one, referring to the server choice. Any response to this?
We actually tried multiple different servers, and the fairest one was Virginia, and they actually had the ping advantage, so I don't know why anyone says anything about Virginia or Texas, this, that. Geo pings 40 to every single server imaginable, and we all pinged 30, and Geo was on 40, so technically we had the disadvantage. So I guess Johnny was on 20 ping, and Geo was on 40, so it balanced out like to that aspect, but they were all on 30. I was on 30. Dylan lives in Texas, so he was on the same ping as them. So there was really no advantage or disadvantage at all.
So he says that as usual they tested multiple different servers, and he reckons that the OpTic guys were pinging 30, so pretty standard stuff, and the Vegas guys were averaging 30. So he says there was certainly no advantage for us, maybe even a disadvantage for us. Geo was on 40 ping, Johnny was on 20 ping, and then I guess obviously Attach was on the same ping that the OpTic guys were on, let's say 30, and then Nero was apparently on 30 or so as well. So he reckons it was pretty similar, and there wasn't any significant advantage to be gleaned either way. So thought it was very interesting, right? Obviously people in the replies to this one talking about how, it's pretty obvious after that 1v1 against Geo that there was something dodgy going on. Whether that's true, whether that's not, I don't know, and I guess we'll see what happens over time. But this is just why online cheese has got to go, right? Because the more we play online, every single time you get issues like this, you get concerns like this, and well, I'm looking forward to getting back to a LAN environment very obviously. Will OpTic and Vegas play each other from now to the end of the season? It is definitely possible, I would say. It's possible at the major. Vegas have a decent chance to make it to the major, right, and actually qualify through to the winners bracket where they may play OpTic. But of course, in terms of World Championship qualification, OpTic are the second seed. They may end up first seed, and Vegas are not out of the realms of possibility if they play like how they did against OpTic a couple of days ago and maybe get the server advantage, whatever. But I think they just generally played well and OpTic didn't. They could get to the 7th seed, and if they were to get there, they might play OpTic round 1 of the World Championship, which would of course be quite spectacular to see. Just to close out the video, for each CDL franchise, what percentage of their total career players won a championship for them? So pretty interesting, right? That for FaZe, every single player that's played for FaZe has won a championship with them, which maybe isn't a massive surprise. For Toronto, that's 9 of 12. For Texas, or for OpTic, that's 11 of 15. And, kind of goes down from there. So it makes sense, really. You've got the top 4, then you've got the rest, and obviously that falls off quite considerably. This one's kind of tough for Thieves, isn't it? 25%. Because, the fewest you can have, obviously, is 4, right? You can't have 3 players on the team 1 because there's 4 players on a team. So your number is either 0, 4, or more than 4. But for Thieves, obviously it's just 4 out of all the iterations of rosters they've put together, and to be fair, it's similar for some of these other teams. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.